I have the pleasure to announce some of the coolest guys I've met so far at this place in Santa Clara. And I'll let them speak for themselves in a second. But please welcome Robert Malco, Chris Murata, and Juan Cabrera.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
You can get up. You go first. Are we mic check? Yeah.
Mic check. Are we starting this thing?
Yep, you're starting it.
All right.
All right, I guess we start with
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Juan, metric principal at ustwo New York.
And I'm Chris, a design principal at ustwo New York. Just for some context on ustwo, we're a digital products design studio. And we partner with clients to make experiences, XR and non-XR. Yeah, we're from the New York studio, and I'll hand it to Rob.
Cool. My name is Rob. I head up innovation. I got Derek out here. Thank you for coming. He's part of my team as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. It's been a blast meeting everybody. I hope everybody has some full tummies and you get some takeaways from this talk. It's really awesome to get to see everybody being passionate about this space, and I think there's some fun things that you can take out of this. Cool. Just to level set what we're going to chat about here today, I just wanted to throw something up on the board so you can kind of visualize it. We'll talk through the process, how we got here, some of the learnings that we took. But essentially, we worked together for 4 months working on this kind of rough prototype. We took one of our properties at the ARIA, and we built out a security simulation and training simulation for them. So Chris, in a few minutes, will talk about how we looked into things like RPG games and simulation game mechanics to help guide kind of what we kind of went through. The goal here is really to take kind of our training programs and kind of just up-level that to make a really big, impactful difference. So within the experience, you'll see some prototypes in a little bit, but we kind of have two game modes. Or two modes. One is kind of a top-down view looking at our property. So you can imagine this being really useful to get a good lay of the land of the space, right? And the other is a first-person view. So you can walk around, you can interact. It's kind of like a day-in-the-life scenario that we're coining this. After each session, the person going through the game will get a report card to see how they've done, see how well they're picking up on the space, how well they're learning the space, going through the missions. So kind of these ingredients of digital twin, game design, and training is kind of the inspiration for this talk, playful tools for serious work. I think building internal tools for businesses can be really engaging and fun, while also at the same time delivering real value to your employees. All right, cool. So just who is MGM Resorts? I got hit up on LinkedIn a bunch thinking that we were the movie studio. We're not the movie studio. If you've been to Vegas, you've probably seen one of our properties. We're a global entertainment and hospitality brand, right? We have a portfolio of 31 unique hotel and gaming destinations globally. And you can imagine we have a lot of physical space. We have a lot of rooms. We have a lot of people in that space, working across a lot of different verticals and jobs. We have hundreds of restaurants, just massive amount of scale, right? So our vision is to be the world's premier gaming entertainment company. That's the company's vision statement. And here's our mission statement, which I really, really love. We exist to provide humanity an unforgettable escape, a unique world filled with anticipation, entertainment, and unparalleled experiences. So why do I get excited about taking kind of all these new tools and gadgets and technology that you're seeing out in space and how we can apply them to our business? Well, just think about the mission statement that we just saw, right? A unique world filled with anticipation, unparalleled experiences, an unforgettable escape. I think that sounds pretty obvious and compelling to me. So when you start to think about the physical space we have and how many different types of jobs, it just really starts to make sense on how we can start to use digital twins and create really, really impactful and meaningful, joyful experiences. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Chris. I think Chris is going to talk through kind of how we got to here from the design side, and we'll kick it off from there. Chris?
Thank you. All right. Cool. Hello, everybody. So yeah, like Rob said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the design process and some of the philosophy behind what we did. But I'd like to start with this quote from Frank Camaro, who's an author and designer, which is, "The creative process, like a good story, needs to start with a great leap of lightness. And that is only attainable through a suspension of disbelief." So like any brief, well-defined or open, we like to start by having a little bit of fun. This doesn't mean that we ignore our objectives forever. We define them ahead of time, and then we put them away, and then we take them back out when appropriate so that we can be audacious with our ideas. One way that we do this is through big kind of collaborative workshops. And one of those exercises that I like to talk about for a bit is the concept equation workshop. It's kind of an exquisite corpse style workshop or it's an exquisite corpse style exercise where people iterate on each other's ideas and they make new ideas by creating unexpected combinations. So as an example, you might combine video games with a game genre of sports, with MGM locations and events like weddings, and out of that you would get a wedding tycoon experience in which you design fantastical weddings using interesting briefs and MGM properties. Each week, the community votes on the most creative design. A key part of this is that then groups rotate and they iterate on other groups' ideas by replacing one card. So they get to choose the cards from basically like a stack of cards. So what would happen if you swapped sports with an RPG? You might get an immersive experience where you play the role of various MGM employees in a scenario with multiple paths/endings depending on the choices you make. You're going to see some of the kind of origins of the ideas here. But really what this does is it allows people to get out of thinking about solutions and start thinking about experiences. And not just experiences, but the emotional state of the user in those experiences. Like I said, we don't stay away from our objectives forever. We also created strategic opportunity areas. And one area that was really interesting to us was kind of this convergence of staff training and guest orientation. So we knew that post-COVID turnover was really high, and that it's hard to effectively and efficiently train employees. So we kind of took all of those ideas that came out of the workshop basically grouped them into 6 different themes, then kind of cross-referenced those themes with the different strategic opportunity areas and started to hone in on one specific area. One that we were really excited about, though, was simulations and collaborative tools. So some of you all might remember this game, but remember that wedding tycoon game that I just talked about? This kind of idea was really popular. And it's no surprise, because MGM properties are complex and ever-evolving systems, and sim games like Roller Coaster Tycoon or SimCity ask players to both design and manage these systems. So sim games are also really good at throwing us unexpected challenges. Just when you think you've mastered your plan, the game surprises us with a new variable. For example, maybe you're running out of money, or one of your rides just broke down, or a guest needs to go to the bathroom, or you remember the importance of regular safety inspections. Cool. Oh, back one. Cool. We were also really drawn to experiences that allowed players to kind of have creative control over their space, right? From the layout of a casino floor to the many conferences and conventions that they have at their properties, the MGM properties are always evolving. So what if you could visualize those spaces before ever actually having to move a piece of furniture? So games can also be really serious. They can ask us difficult moral questions. For example, in Papers, Please, the players take on the role of an immigration officer at a border checkpoint in a fictional country, and it features a time-based gameplay loop where players must process as many travelers as possible within a limited time frame while balancing various other factors like checking for discrepancies, verifying information, and dealing with moral dilemmas. So games can ask players to make difficult choices that have consequences. And at the same time, they provide us with safe space to experiment. And if we fail, we try again. Of course, a very popular buzzword, if you're at AW and you don't know what a digital twin is, I don't know what you're doing here, but if you don't know, it's a virtual model designed to accurately reflect physical objects. And we've seen it used basically across manufacturing, across airports, and even cities. Obviously, these applications are incredibly valuable and incredibly impressive, but so few people actually get to use them. We wanted to make something that had a measurable impact on frontline employees and therefore your average guests. So, for example, here's the MGM Grand. It's over 170,000 square feet. It's huge. What if we could use a digital twin of this property more like an open world game rather than a kind of pure simulation? Basically, what if we could turn this into this? This is the Zelda map if you haven't played it. What if we could turn this, basically kind of staff training, right? Linear, passive, dated, cheesy, into something more like this. Non-linear, expressive, full of meaningful choice and player agency. And if you think about it, the RPG, or any game for that matter, is kind of like a training tool, right? Their mechanics and dynamics train the player for what comes next. However, this doesn't mean that we set out specifically to make a game. We're very inspired by games because games solve really difficult problems. But I think what really inspired us was thinking about the people who actually work on the floor, right? And I think that people learn through experience, and sometimes that experience is hard-won, right? So if your job asks you to deal with people like this, or even worse, like this, you would probably understand. So that's kind of ultimately why the safety and security team were an obvious choice for this prototype. Can we help officers become more comfortable dealing with conflict, right? Like triggering that fight or flight response. So we worked directly with the safety and security team at the ARIA to identify the most common scenarios that their officers face on a daily basis. We learned about their training program, the physical space, their go-to tactics. We even wrote dialogue that mimics their real situations. For example, if you're too drunk to tell me how many quarters are in a dollar, you should probably go to bed. Unfortunately, I can't go into great detail about any of these scenarios and protocols because, it is a casino after all. But the experience itself builds on that concept of a time-based loop. Basically, the trainee clocks in or starts the day, and the reports start coming in. And they need to prioritize the incoming reports and address them accordingly. So this is a mock of the walkie-talkie that you actually have in the game, and those are some of the scenarios. They come in basically at different times, and you as the player need to kind of prioritize which one you go to first. Let's see. Most of the scenarios are conversation-driven, where your choices matter, referencing back to the RPGs. At the end of each day, the officer receives a report card with a breakdown of each scenario and their grade for that scenario. So this is kind of what that looks like. Grading is determined by a combination of principles that they learn in their academy, things like speed, friendliness, use of de-escalation techniques, etc. At the same time, we were designing the gameplay, we were also building the twin. And we were very scrappy with how we built the twin. We knew that it was more important that the twin kind of feel like the space and capture the essence of the space, but doesn't have to be like a one-to-one replica, right? So we showed up at 2 a.m. On a Wednesday. We took a combination of 360 video, LiDAR scans, laser measurements, photos. I'm sure maybe some of y'all have been in a casino at 3 in the morning. It's a strange place, but it was really fun. And then our technical artist, Steve, shout out Steve right there, basically built it all by himself using CAD drawings as reference, but also using those images. I think really this process itself kind of deserves its own talk, but I'll keep going. I think, of course, it wasn't a straight line to get here. Much like traditional game development, you spend a lot of time trying to, quote unquote, find the fun, right? So some early examples, right, kind of emphasize the player as this godlike figure, kind of looking down at the entire aria and literally like picking up and dragging security guards to intercept a drunk guest somewhere. It turns out that like this style of interaction, this mechanic, doesn't really make sense to most people. If you've played RTS games, maybe you would be familiar with it, but try explaining it to your average security officer. And they're kind of just like, I want to be in first person. I want to feel like I'm there. And that was one of the big pieces of feedback that we got in early playtesting. So we ended up flipping the experience. You can still access that surveillance view, and that's kind of a way to quickly move around the space and learn about the space and its key locations, but then you kind of zoom in and out. But this iterative process is key to how we like to work at ustwo. We navigate ambiguity by embracing failure as we build. And to talk more about this, I'll hand it over to my partner in crime, Juan.
Thank you. To start, to expand a bit more on this process, I would like to start by talking about the most important aspect of it. That is our user-centric approach to engineering. In a nutshell, it's an approach where we elevate engineering perspectives to meet the unique challenges of creating innovative experiences. The essence is pretty simple. Embrace failure, break some rules, and engineers being part of the design process. From the tech point of view, to innovate, having a strong foundation in software engineering, it is important. But for this type of projects, that's not enough. It's also about a team that can think outside of the box and bend or break some rules when needed. Because when you're trying to create something memorable, it needs to contain elements of both fun and playfulness. That's why it's so important to remember that playfulness is not a feature. It's an experience. You can't scope fun. You need to find it. At ustwo, we're often asked to create first-of-its-kind experiences when there is no textbook, no previous case studies, no precedents. We innovate by pushing the envelope. But also the most important part is that we do it by failing early and learning fast. Because each failure brings us closer to understanding the challenge, but also it helps us to inform decisions and spark creative ways to solve these problems. As Chris said before, you need to navigate ambiguity by embracing failure. Also, it's really important to remember that developers can be a lot more than just ticket resolving machines. They are an essential part of the design process. It's all about shifting their focus from the tickets to the users. And you can start doing this by involving them early on in projects and also inviting them to things like brainstorming sessions. The more they think about the user, the better the products and experiences you will create. Now, let's take a quick look at one example. At first, the interaction with the bots were rather basic, just reading a text bubble. So, for example, when you needed to deal with an angry guest that is venting and yelling at you, reading the text bubble felt pretty bland. The experience was weak, was lacking any sense of emotion. So then, how could we help people to get better at dealing with conflict? Somehow we needed to find a way to trigger that fight or flight response in people. That's when one of our past explorations with Unreal Engine came in handy. Could we use meta-humans to make the experience feel more real? After some explorations, we could see the experience was a lot better with the meta-humans. It felt good. It felt more real. I mean, we went from this guy here to this guy, so big improvement. But we had only one issue, creating a meta-human, sync the audio, placing the meta-human into the twin model, capturing the video. It all worked great, but it was a significant workload. Until we found this 11 Labs tool. It's a text-to-speech tool. And it's a game changer because it uses AI to detect the sentiment in the text, so it adds emotion to the generated speech. So, for example, we could turn this text into this.
Ooh, looky here. They've gone and called the cops on me. What? Are you going to arrest me? I've done nothing wrong.
So now that we have this, we could generate the speech audio on the fly using their API and have a fully automated pipeline to generate interactions like this one.
Oh, looky here. They've gone and called the cops on me. What? You're going to arrest me? I've done nothing wrong.
Which, as you can see, is a lot better than this one. But the most important part here, I think, is that we were able to have our users to experience and deal with emotions like anger or distress in a safe space. We were able to create a safe space to fail, to learn, and to improve. Now I will pass it to Ro to talk more about some learnings.
Thank you. I will be quick here to end this presentation to see if there is any questions. But really quickly, I just wanted to talk through some of the things that I personally learned. I know it says what we learned. I think but I can speak for a lot of people here. The first is this stuff is really hard. I mean, it's easy if you're trying to take a tool and a technology and build something, right? But when you get down to the nitty-gritty, getting value and building something that's meaningful is really difficult. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. Patience, you need a lot of it, or at least I think I need more than I have. I'm not a very patient person. But things just take a while. You know, sometimes things don't really exist yet that you need, right? Like in the case of what you were looking at previously with the speech to text, it's hard to do that, you know, if we wanted to in a real life fashion or scaling it up to have multiple scenarios and thinking about how you kind of productionalize it. So you need patience. Stuff's going to take a while to get right. And it needs to be accessible. That's one of my big takeaways. So putting on headsets for us, for all of our employees, is not a thing that's going to happen right away. Thinking about where you can deploy this, making it easy, I think is going to be really critical as you start to think about kind of how you roll this out and get adoption and find value in these experiences. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing to take away is you have to have fun, because somebody's going to smell if you're not having fun trying to like bring this experience to somebody. So all these experiences that you're building for other people, whether it be customers, clients, in our case for internal employees, you need to bring kind of the fun, right? They're gonna sense that, and they're gonna be much more kind of engaged in the experience. So thank you. I have a lot of fun in this talk. I've had a lot of fun in this project with Chris, Juan, and the rest of the ustwo team. If anybody has any questions, come find the ustwo at booth 526. And with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. We've got time for one question. If anybody has one question, why don't you stand right here in front of this mic and ask your question? And we'll keep the answer brief. And then anybody else who wants to ask a question, I think you can visit them at the booth or immediately after this session right in the back of the room.
Thank you. And thank you very much for being here. So actually, I've graduated from UNLV, and I actually work for Park MGM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was really cool to see Aria in that virtual reality model. But my question is, I bought an Oculus a couple of years ago, and probably the only game I play is Poker Stars VR, and the only game I play. And seeing that model made me think that, do you think MGM International is ever going to go into that space with like Poker Stars VR with using real money?
If I had to guess, I would say in the future, I could totally see a fully integrated casino, right?
Yeah.
Like not even just poker, but walking up to a
Blackjack.
craps table or a blackjack table, I could totally see that being a value add to the business.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun playing, not only because you're gambling, but also because you have that interaction with other people. You can talk fun with other people around that space.
It wasn't a plant. Thank you. I feel like that was a perfect question. For us.
Oh yeah. No, just
Great softball.
Yeah, exactly.
Great way to end
it was
the
a tee-up.
presentation. Appreciate the question. Appreciate the response.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for our speakers here today. Another round of applause. And thanks to our sponsors, Magic Leap Niantic.